Okay, and we are all clear. So hello, everybody out there watching. Thank you for joining us here this evening, this dreary, kind of rainy, wet evening for us in the Hill Country. Not sure what it's like for wherever you're watching from, but we certainly appreciate you joining us tonight, taking some time out of your quarantined evening at home to spend some time with the winemakers here. So my name is Mitchell Chirac. I run a website and an Instagram account called The Liquid Culture, all about wine education. I've spent the last month, a lot of my time, but particularly the last month, highlighting Texas wines. And I think what these guys have done down here in order to help kind of get everybody their wine and be able to connect with their favorite wineries down in the Hill Country is really stellar. There's been a lot of really great innovation and really great creative thinking down here in the Texas Hill Country for these wineries and winemakers to connect with all of their fans. And what we're doing tonight is just another part of that. So what we're going to be doing is, for those of you watching who are watching because you've been hearing about this for a while, you know that we're going to be tasting through the wines in both a 3-pack and a 6-pack that was a collaboration between Astris, French Connection, and Lost Draw. We've got the 3 winemakers of each of those wineries here tonight. So I'm going to let each of them introduce themselves. Then we'll get into each of the wines. They'll each explain to you a little bit about that wine. And we'll kind of go round robin. So everybody kind of hits one, then the other, then the next one after that. So start out with Andrew Sides of Lost Draw. Andrew, say what's up. Introduce yourself, man.
Hey, how's it going, everyone? Super excited to be doing this. I'm wishing we could, the original plan was for us to all be together doing this little tasting, but just due to the circumstances, it's more appropriate, I think, to be doing it this way, but kind of a new experience. So we'll see how it goes. I'm kind of excited to be a part of it, see how it goes. I've been in the wine industry for a little over a decade, I guess, actually closer to about 15 years. I had a little break in there, but about 15 years total, 10 really active years. But excited to taste these wines tonight, and I guess we'll see how it goes.
Sweet. Thanks, Andrew. Ben, Calais with French Connection. You're up next, man.
Hey guys, thanks for joining this live. I'm Ben. I'm the owner and one of the owners and the winemaker for French Connection Wines. We do run varietals. I have another winery, Calais, that also does Bordeaux varietals. All the wines we're doing tonight are from Connection, which is all run varietals. Everything is 100% Texas, which is the same for all our friends that are here. And we are located in High Texas, so kind of in the middle of 290. We're not open just like everybody else at the moment, but that's why we're taking to the interwebs to do this kind of tasting. So hopefully it should be fun.
Awesome. Thanks, Ben. And last on the panel here is Mike Nelson, my brother-in-law. Mike with Astris. Say what's up, man.
Hey guys, excited to be here. When we put this on the calendar originally, like both the other guys said, we were supposed to do it in person, and I was really looking forward to that. But here we are doing a Zoom meeting live streamed to Facebook, I think is the right description. And yeah, so here we are. Should be exciting. Hope to, do this in person someday soon. Hope for everything to be back to normal someday soon. But I'm psyched about doing this. So like you said, I'm Mike Nelson with Astris. We are kind of the new kids on the block compared to Ben and Andrew. Been in the wine industry for about 4 years now, 5 years now, I guess. Fully dedicated, though, for a little less than 3. Moved down to Fredericksburg here a few years ago, and have been making wine and taking care of the vines at Astris ever since. We are in Stonewall. We are catty corner to the LBJ Schoolhouse off of Klein Road. They're kind of next to the LBJ National Park.
Sweet. Thanks a lot, Mike. So, yeah, as each of these guys have said, for anybody who's just now joining here with us, we would have loved to have done this in person, but we all felt that not only for our own, personal health and safety, but, just to kind of show our, kind of our want to continue to do things the right way during this Corona situation, and be a good example for folks out there to make sure we're continuing to social distance. We thought that this was the best route to go. So as I mentioned early on, hopefully everybody, a good chunk of you out there are logged in and who are excited about watching this. So we're going to start kind of moving into each individual wine and kind of get into the meat of what we're here to do this for. So the way we're going to do it here is we're going to start with the 3-pack. So I know some of you out there watching have already purchased your wines and are maybe drinking along here with us tonight. But for those of you who haven't and who are just looking to kind of watch so you can see some of these winemakers who you may have been following for a while, these wines are still available on the Lost Straw website. Obviously, each of our other websites have links that'll get you right where you need to be if you want to purchase these. So again, to start, we're going to hit the Texas United 3-pack of white wines. This was an $85 pack that you guys can buy on the website, and it's 3 individual single varietal Rhone white wines from each of these individual wineries. So we're going to let Andrew kick it off talking about the Lost Straw Cellars 2018 Marsanne. So Andrew, take it away, man.
Thank you. Yeah, and just a little housekeeping. We're going to go through quite a few wines tonight, so I'm going to hit like the major points, and everybody else is going to do the same. If you have questions, definitely post them to the page. We're going to answer as many of those as possible, and anything we don't get to, we'll definitely follow up offline. But just to kind of kick it right off, we're starting with the Marsanne. This is a really cool traditional grape for the Rhone. It's not a grape that we typically use every single year for like a single varietal. It actually 16 was the first year that we actually made it into a single varietal. Prior to that, it just went into a Rhone blend. Marsanne traditionally is not always the best grape from a balance standpoint with acidity and like fruit, but the last few years it really has like kind of surprised us in that realm. It's had really nice balanced acid, especially at the numbers at harvest have been really good, and we're able to ripen this grape a little bit longer, get a little bit higher sugars before the pH just completely falls out of it. But typically a lot of these Rhone varieties, especially for our programs, we're aging and or fermenting and aging in stainless. We only go through primary fermentation. We're really trying to retain that really aromatic, fruit forward, really clean, crisp white wine. We feel like for the wines that we're trying to make and the styles that we're really trying to achieve with these wines, that it just kind of really fits that profile. So the 18 is no different. It was harvested about probably 22 and a half bricks, somewhere in that 3.5 to 3.6 pH range. And we really try to harvest grapes where we don't have to acidify a whole lot. So we really like to retain as much natural acidity as possible. So we generally pick grapes a little bit less ripe than, traditionally they would probably be harvested at. But it really keeps our wines really like lean, fresh, and really light. And you'll really notice with this wine, it's very aromatic on the nose, but it's got enough body to really kind of carry it through. It's got a kind of a cool like waxiness to it, like maybe a beeswax or honey note that I really always appreciate with a lot of these Rhone varieties, especially Marsanne. I think that's like one of the beautiful things why it's used in a lot of Rhone blends in different regions around the world. But not to get too far into the weeds, I really, really enjoy these Rhone varieties because they really show a sense of place and terroir. You can taste these wines from different places with the same grapes all over the world, and I feel like that you get a lot of really intense notes that come from the soil, always a lot of minerality that shows through, especially with the production methods that we're using. But hope you enjoy it. It's definitely a good one to kick off the night.
Fantastic. Thanks a lot, Andrew. Appreciate it, man. Ben, you're up next. Talk about your 2015 Reserve Roussanne from French Connection.
All right. So Roussanne and Marsanne are the two that are usually blended together. They tend to be opposite side of the style spectrum. Marsanne, like Andrew said, is more on the lighter side, and Roussanne is about as big and heavy as it's going to come. Now, you don't have to make Roussanne in that style. You can actually like make Roussanne into a lighter body. But if you want to make a big, heavy white, Roussanne is your varietal out of all the run options. So we went all the way to the corner with this wine. This is probably the most extreme white wine we've made. It's 15.6 alcohol. We picked it super late. So we had picked that vineyard. We had one pass through that whole vineyard already. So we made a regular version of that wine on that exact same year. And then we did a second pass at a higher ripeness level so that we could get that fuller body, bigger, heavier, like fuller mouthfeel. Then it was barrel fermented. It was aged on the lees. So the total aging is about 4 years on this wine. So it's very, very long time. It's very unusual for a white wine to be in barrels that long. The first 2 years we aged on the lees, then we racked it, and then we aged it 2 years more, but not on the lees anymore because at some point the lees are going to go sour on you. So we felt like 2 years was a good point to kind of stop aging on the lees. We had gotten enough creaminess, enough body out of it by that point, so there was not much reason for us to like keep it on the lees anymore. And then after that, we give it basically just a really small amount of oxygen. Like, we're not really looking for too much barrel character, although because the wine is high in alcohol, it's actually going to extract a lot more from the barrel than you would imagine. So it tastes like it has new barrels, but it's actually just a small amount of new barrels on there. It's pretty big. It's age worthy. It's a wine that we don't make every year. This is only like the third time that we've done this guy.
Awesome, Ben. Thanks a lot, man. Cool. So, Mike, you're up with the Astris Viognier.
All right. Well, it's kind of a fitting end to this trio. We talked about Marsanne, we talked about Roussanne, and now we get some Viognier. So typically the third amigo in the Marsanne Roussanne Viognier blend tends to add a little bit of citrus, little fruitiness, little stone fruit, which goes well with the heavier bodied Roussanne and the light, somewhat waxy Marsanne. This Viognier comes to us from the High Plains. It is Bingham and Ready Vineyards, respectively. Viognier is an interesting varietal. It can it changes on you really quickly. I only have a couple harvests worth of experience working with Viognier, but both of them we've seen Viognier like shoot up from like 22 bricks to 28 bricks within the span of, a day, maybe two. And the difference in taste between Viognier harvested at like 22, 23 bricks versus 26, 27 bricks is significant. You get a Viognier picked at 27, 28 bricks and you can taste like peach schnapps, really hot, really, accentuated stone fruit. This Viognier was picked in the 23 brick range. Like Andrew was saying earlier, the goal there is also to take advantage of the natural acidity, not have to acidulate the wine to get it into that 3.5, 3.6 pH range. So we were fortunate to not really have to acidulate this wine. It was in that 3.5 range where we wanted it to be. For me, I get a lot of minerality in this wine, like we've been talking about this whole time. Rhone varietals do tend to absorb the terroir that they're grown in. You get a lot of, if they're grown in limestone, you get good minerality. They can give you a very good sense of place, depending on where they were grown. And I think this Viognier is, it tastes like the High Plains to me. I enjoyed this wine. I enjoyed this wine a lot with shellfish. If you're looking for a good recommendation, I would go with crab cakes.
Awesome, Mike. Thanks a lot, man. Yeah, so that's a pretty epic 3-pack in my opinion, especially for $85. For those of you watching who may not be as familiar with the Texas wine industry, the white Rhone varietals are something that you will see all over the place. They are incredibly ubiquitous down here. And I think, in my opinion, from someone who drinks a ton of wine, from an educational standpoint, I think that Texas winemakers are doing as good or better of a job on the Texas white Rhone varietals than anybody else in the country, and definitely are on par, and in many cases knocking it out of the park against the actual Rhone Valley when it comes to those wines. So when you're down here, and even right now while you're not down here, try and pick up some Texas white Rhone varietals, because I guarantee you you're going to really, really enjoy them. We did have a question come through about what I was drinking from Clint Thomas of Cellars, which is very funny because I'm actually drinking, in a way to stay neutral here, I am actually drinking Clint's wine, his 2018 Paco Loco Cellars Red Blend. So yeah, so Clint, I'm glad you asked, because I'm drinking your wine. On to the next portion of the live tasting here. We're going to start getting into the 6-pack wines, guys. So we'll have some whites, but we also have a rosé in there, and then some red wines as well. This again is a pack that you can still purchase on the Lost Draw website. 6 wines, $185. Again, both of these incredible values when it comes to the wines that are a part of this pack. So Andrew, we're going to head right back to you for the Lost Draw 2018 Albarino.
Man, if anyone's drinking along at home, this is a rapid pace. So we're going to go with the Albarino. This one's actually a really cool wine for us. We actually don't do Albarino every year. We sourced this fruit both from the High Plains, 2 different vineyards, and really we're trying to we use it for a Spanish blend that we do every year, but we don't always make it into a single varietal. But this is the first year that we actually had our concrete eggs, which is a really interesting format that we've been playing around with for 3 vintages now. And we really have enjoyed the results for sure. So if you're not familiar with concrete or terracotta or some different formats that aren't oak or stainless, we use these formats to really achieve like some really nice mouthfeel and give the wine a little bit more texture, especially with whites and rosés than you would generally have. And it doesn't impart any oak. So you get all the benefits from the microoxidation that happens through that aging process, but it really retains some pretty nice natural acidity and keeps the aromatics of the wines pretty nice. And my good buddy Chris Brundrett, we went down to Spain about 3 or 4 years ago, and they were using like concrete like everywhere, and they were trying to make these like really light and pretty easy drinking, medium body wines. And they were using them, and it really made a lot of sense for what we're doing here in Texas, and especially with the style of wines that we're trying to make. These formats and this production method just kind of like really fit like the style that what we were trying to achieve, especially with the varieties that we were using. So we both got some, and then started playing around with them, and the wines have been phenomenal. Like this Albarino is actually fermented and aged in the concrete. And so it's not a traditional, like really light and kind of zippy Albarino, which is kind of a traditional style, but this one's got a little bit more body, a little more texture. And there's still really, really nice ripe acidity through the finish of it. It's turned out really good. We're pretty happy with it. But these Spanish varieties, I mean, Tempranillo, Albarino, they're really popular here in Texas, just like some of the Rhones. They really fit our climate pretty well.
How big are the eggs that you got?
So we have 2 different sizes. We have the like 80-gallon. They're like the smaller ones that look like an upright barrel. And then the larger ones that we have are 250 gallons. And we do some of our larger, we do a really nice rosé from Farmhouse Vineyards. It's like Counoise is the grape, and it always goes into the eggs. That's like one kind of a program that we've been doing for about 4 years now. But yeah, we have kind of like 4 different wines that we use the concrete for pretty predominantly.
Yeah, man, I was actually down in Chile last year and noticed everybody there had the concrete eggs as well. So I actually had a question. So is it still somewhat kind of new for you where you're trying to decide what varietals work best in it? Or is there some kind of decision-making process that you go through after harvest that says we think this should go in concrete versus stainless versus whatever?
Yeah, At first, for sure. I mean, we've gotten a little bit more, I guess, sophisticated in like the programming of like what we're trying to do, instead of just like, hey, we got all this cool stuff, let's just like try to make wine this way. We're really trying to like stay pretty tight to what the plan is from the beginning. And there's definitely wines that I feel like, especially the white wines and the reds that we're doing direct press on, that we can ripen a little bit more, but still keep our natural acid pretty low. They generally have a little bit higher alcohol, and there's just a little bit more body. So it really kind of enhances that, and it really kind of shines through it. It doesn't make a lot of sense to take a wine like that you pick with a really, really low pH or high TA and low sugar, and then try to make like this big, like full bodied wine out of it. And like that wouldn't really be a good fit for the concrete. And we've done some red. We did a really nice Grenache and from 2017 in the concrete. And then what we've actually started playing around with, and this is one of our Brad Buckaloo. If you've been associated with Lost Straw, you know that Brad, he's like really, really a gift to our winemaking team, and he does a fantastic job. And we have a lot of ideas that we bounce off each other, but it was his idea actually to start finishing some wines in concrete. So like we'll do like the last 4 to 6 months of aging for some of the wines that we're trying to make, like more medium body, like more aromatic, fruit forward, less oak impact wines. Obviously, we're finishing them in concrete and letting them kind of age out like right before bottling it in the concrete formats.
Nice.
Sweet, man. Thanks a lot. Appreciate that.
Yeah, sure.
All right, so Ben, this is kind of fun because we just got done doing the single varietal white Rhone. So Ben, now you've got the 2018 La Connexion white blend that's got all 3 of them. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that wine?
Yes. So this is our main line for French Connection. So in the Rhone Valley, there's a whole lot more blends than there are varietal wines. So our idea is to do this from Texas grapes, but kind of respect the tradition that they have in the Rhone Valley of having a little bit more blends than single varietals. So we do a little bit of projects like Roussanne Reserve or like straight Viogniers, but a lot of what we do is going to be blends. So here we have our Connection White from 2018, which is Roussanne Marsanne, which is a classic blend on the white side of the Rhone Valley. And I'm not saying those are the only white grapes of the Rhone Valley. There's definitely a whole lot of different varietals in the Rhone Valley, both on the white and on the reds. But those are the big 3 as far as the whites go. All of this was barrel fermented and barrel aged. So I know Andrew was talking about retaining freshness. So the opposite end of that would be building body. So our personal choice is to go more with barrel fermentation and barrel aging, so that we can get wines that are a little bit more age worthy. So we don't make the same style. So it's totally like a winemaker's choice to just go for a different stylistic choice for this. And so this is something that we want to build into a still drinking style, but we also want it to be a little bit more on the age worthy side. So there's a little bit more Marsanne, a little bit less Roussanne, and just a little bit of Viognier. So we mostly use Viognier as a blender. I think this year we have fantastic Viognier that we're going to bottle a single varietal, but for the most part, we're gearing toward heavier body wines. So like Roussanne and Marsanne both have a little bit more body. The Marsanne and the Roussanne, it really depends what time you pick it. So if you pick it early, you can make lighter, crisper style with those varietals, but we really want like those bigger body out of ours. So all barrel fermented, aged on the lees, about 10 months in barrels, all French oak. Older barrels, we're not looking for oak per se. We're more looking to create bodies. So it's more about lees aging and getting a little bit of oxygen into it. We're not looking as much for like oaky character to it.
Awesome. So Ben, since this is the first blend that we've actually gotten to in this lineup, I had a question. So was this a scenario in which you kind of via your harvest had a certain amount of each of these grapes that you knew were all just going to go into a blend, and the proportions kind of worked out the way that they worked out? Or were you guys kind of individually fermenting and aging and then tasting along to see, okay, this one might add more, this one might add this one might add that, and you specifically picked those proportions for the blend?
So we picked the proportions. So the one thing that we decided to set at picking time, so we actually pressed 2 of those varietals 24 hours apart. And so we had the juices. So with white wines, we don't work with the seeds and skins. So we're going to direct press. So we had those 2 whites pressed at the same time, which was Roussanne and Viognier. The Marsanne came at different time. It's just obvious timing. And so we decided to go ferment those 2 together. So because of that, the ratio of one to the other we could put in a blend was preset. We could put more of that or less of that. We also fermented some Roussanne separate. We fermented some Viognier separate, just to have a little bit of a control and be able to still make the choice in the final blending. We were making all of them separate this year, like for 2019 season. We haven't made those calls yet. We haven't printed those labels yet. We want to age them a little bit longer in barrels to make that decision. But it was really like a factor of 2018 year. We had some wines that wanted to come with high acid, some wines that wanted to come with lower acid, with the same set of wine. One at like high Brix level, and then the other one at lower Brix level. So by blending them together before fermentation on the juice stage, it just helps us not have to like acidify or dealcoholize or really have to intervene on the wine in any form. It just happened that way. And like Mike said earlier, sometimes Viognier is just going to go to like crazy high Brix level over a 48-hour period. The time to drive to the high plains just went from ripe to overripe. And that's just kind of the way it is. Viognier is just going to make those huge jumps just overnight. So sometimes it's nice to be able to blend. Sometimes it comes out great. I've had delicious 15% alcohol Viogniers, but sometimes it's nice to be able to like bring this back to the land of like normal people being able to drink it.
Nice. Cool. Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
No more people are like, it's a 15.5 alcohol wine might not be your poolside wine in the summer.
Right. Some people it will
broadening the public a little bit.
Awesome. All right, cool. Well, now for the first red wine of the bunch, we are going to pop back to Ben here in a little bit for a rosé, but just to kind of keep things on pace here, we're going to let Mike talk a little bit about the Astris 2016 Merlot. Hit it, Mike.
All right, guys. So our 2016 Merlot comes from Newsom Vineyards up in Plains, Texas. I know Ben's very familiar with Neil and his fruit. He's been making wine from Neil's vineyards since probably I was in high school.
12 years. 12 years.
12 years. All right. So not high school, but I don't know, law school or something. So we actually came by this fruit kind of like it became available midway through harvest, and we were like, heck yes, we'd love to get that. When it came in, the numbers were really, really good. Merlot does really, really well in Texas. It's not, I don't think, not every varietal under the sun does well in Texas. Certainly not every Bordeaux varietal. Merlot does really well, and Neil Newsom is a hell of a farmer, especially when it comes to Bordeaux Merlot. So this came in at it was under 3.7 pH, which is crazy for red grapes in Texas. We didn't really have to intervene too much when making this wine. We bin fermented it, which we've kind of tried to stray away from with Merlot. Merlot grapes are really tiny. They look like little blueberries. And when you're doing punch downs on Merlot, it's like punching concrete for the first few days. So we tank ferment that now when we can. In 2016, we've been fermented. And so I really love the way this Merlot turned out. Really nice flavors, kind of typical of Merlot. You've got your stewed cherries, some herbaceousness on the nose, little like a bay leaf. I think my wife got some menthol on there. But it goes with your, common Merlot pairings, braised beef, ossobuco, all those things would be right at home with this. We a lot of 50% French oak on this wine. We made 6 barrels of this. 3 of them were new. You can get the oak coming through. We wanted to make kind of your, classic Merlot. Typical to use a decent amount of oak that sort of program. So that's what we did.
Fantastic. Yeah, I was actually like really pleasantly surprised with the Merlot, because you don't see, even like a lot of places you don't see Merlot. It's another kind of, like we've been talking about with the white Rhone varietals, Merlot is usually used as a blending grape in a Bordeaux blend. So to see a single varietal Merlot, it's, you never really know what you're going to get. But I mean, when this wine was finished up, I was really stoked about the way that the overall flavor profile came out. I don't know, did you say, Mike, to put you on the spot, I don't think I heard you say, what if you were to pair this? I mean, this being the first red wine, I know a lot of people watching, here in Texas, we got a lot of big, bold red wine drinkers, and they're always looking for what to pair their wines with for dinner. So do you have something in mind that you would pair this wine with?
Well, I mean, yeah, I said braised beef or ossobuco, which I think are both really good options. I hate to be like the generic, big red wine goes with like, a ribeye guy, but red meat's going to go well with any of these bigger varietals. But yeah, if you want to go on the cooler side, I would go with like lamb, ossobuco. Those are going to be really nice. Maybe like lamb chops with like a mint jelly to kind of accentuate that menthol or bay leaf on the nose of the wine.
So maybe some things you
Very
might
British
eat
of
around
you.
Easter.
Yeah. So you can still buy this 6-pack on the website. You might as well do that in advance of the holidays.
Sweet. Thanks a lot, man. Appreciate it. All right. So
I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the fallout from Merlot from the movie Sideways. So drink Merlot. It's good.
nice standard, just generic Merlot varietal plug. Cool. All right. Well, we've made the first round through on the 6-pack, so we're all the way back around to Andrew here to talk about the 2017 L'Austria Mourvèdre. Andrew, take it away, man.
Yeah. So this is a Mourvèdre we actually harvest Mourvèdre from 3 different vineyards that we farm in the High Plains. The L'Austria vineyard, obviously, which is the original vineyard that we started sourcing fruit from, and then La Pradera vineyards, which is about a mile and a half from the original L'Austria vineyard, and then the Timmins Estate vineyard, which is in Lubbock County. So totally different soil profile, about probably 30 to 35 miles north of the original L'Austria and La Pradera vineyards. But we do single varietals or single vineyard wines from those 3 vineyards every year with Mourvèdre, and we also make a blend from the 3 every year. So that's always kind of the funnest wine to make, because you get to spend a lot of time in the lab doing some trials on what tastes the best. But blending in Texas, I think, is like a really, really important thing to like think about. We're just using some really, really interesting varieties and different varieties that go pretty well together. And traditionally, most of the time these varieties are blended. So even amongst different vineyards, even though they're all Mourvèdre, we use different components from the age of the vines play a role in it, the weather. As crazy as it sounds, we get vastly different weather from year to year from the Lubbock County vineyard than what we do in Terry County in Brownfield. But using the different components from those vineyards and the different flavor profiles, we like to make blends from, even if they're single varietal blends every year. So this one is primarily from the Timmins Estate vineyard out of Lubbock. So generally those wines are a little bit lighter, more aromatic. Mourvèdre is always one of the last grapes that we harvest in the year, which in about 90% of the time is what makes it so fun to use in the winery, because it's very late bud break. So we never have had a problem with freeze pressure for Mourvèdre, and it generally gets a little bit more ripening time and cooler ripening weather, like through September into October. This past season was a little different. Anything that was really late ripening, we had a lot of problems with. But traditionally, Mourvèdre is going to be a grape that's going to be really, really successful in vineyards across the state, not just in the High Plains, but in the Hill Country as well. There's been some really, really good Mourvèdres that are being produced from wineries all over the place. Most of the time with Mourvedre, we're about 30 to 40% new oak program. So we use 100% French oak for Mourvedre, and just depending on the vineyard, the season, how ripe we get the fruit, generally will kind of impact how much new oak influence we want onto the wine. We want to make sure that the fruit can really hold up. The tannin is big enough to really integrate with the new oak tannin. And this one was about 40%. So 17 was a banner year across the state. I think you'll find if you bought a lot of 2017 Texas wine, you're going to be really pleased. Now and for the next 5-6 years, these wines are going to be drinking great. 2017 was a really good crop for just about every winery, and some fantastic wines that are being produced from that vintage. This is one of the bigger Mourvedres I would say that we've made, just from just a fruit structure tannin standpoint. It's got a little bit more than what we traditionally see with Mourvedre, and we actually added a little bit more new oak to it, and I think it really integrated very well. Makes a little bit bigger. It's got a little bit more character, and one that I think will age out for a really, really long time and be really good in 3 to 4 years.
Awesome, man. So I actually have all month I've been telling people how just absolutely stellar the 2017 vintage is for Texas wines. Can you talk a little bit as to kind of why that was the case? Was there one or two things that really kind of stood out for the weather, or was it lack of hazards? Like, what was it that made 2017 such an awesome vintage?
Well, I think in every vintage, like you're definitely, especially for a place like Texas that has grapes that are harvested from like July to October, you're going to have some standouts every year. And just based upon when they kind of hit that swing from like bud break to like ripening, and like when you get like shatter, it all like plays a role in how well the grape itself will turn out. And so when you're using all these vast varieties, like most of the time we're not going to like knock it out of the park every single year with every single variety. There's definitely going to be some that kind of stand out from year to year, which is what makes vintages in Texas kind of interesting and fun and elegant. And that's why I love being a part of this industry so much, is looking for these certain varieties on certain years. But 17 was kind of an anomaly. We really didn't have any freeze pressure early on, so anything that came out early was fine. The summer months really that usually spike. What's really interesting is a lot of people don't realize, like even in the high plains, most of the times the hottest months are actually like late June and early July, where it's very different down here in the hill country, where it's usually like late July, August, usually when you experience the most heat. But it really stayed pretty mild throughout, and we didn't get a lot of rain through the growing season, kind of just the right amount. It really got us through bud break and to like fruit set, and then the weather just like really was pretty awesome. Like we had some just like nice, like pretty breezy summer days. Never really got, I don't think in August of 17, and obviously I'd have to talk to Andy to like get 100% facts on this, but I don't remember there being a day in August over like 85 degrees. And so you're talking about like August is like generally the most important month for a lot of these Rhone varieties that we're growing. Just that's the biggest ripening time frame. And so we're really, when it stays cooler like that, we're able to retain acidity in the fruit while also ripening the plant and building sugar. So that's the balance that we're really, really like looking for like high quality fruit. And in 17, it just kind of all lined up, and we were able to ripen just about everything as late as we wanted, and never had a problem having to pull stuff off because pHs were getting out of line. And I don't know, it was kind of one of those years that you dream about, and then it's like, well, it may not ever be that good again, but let's celebrate it and hold on to your 17s or look for them if you're a Texas wine drinker and love to support the industry. There's going to be some good wines to hang on to and drink for a long time.
Fantastic, man. Thanks a lot. Appreciate the insights on that vintage year. That's one of the things that I kind of wish that there was more education around, that somebody would just go and, from a selfish perspective, I wish somebody would just start tabulating like vintage like research, and just talk about different vintages and like what the weather did, and what vintages were stellar, and all that kind of cool stuff for the Texas wine industry. I hope somebody does that soon.
Have
All
at it,
right,
brother.
so Ben, we are on to Rosé, man. So the 2018 La Connexion Rosé, and in particular, we've had some questions come through on Facebook specifically for your Rosé. So make sure, one, I guess, to touch on, and I'm sure you will, the blend of the Rosé, and two, people were preemptively asking how many days of skin contact for the Rosé. So take it away, Ben.
All right. So this wine is Mourvèdre. So this is people ask pronounce it. So Mourvèdre is the varietal. It's a weird one. It's a weird one to pronounce in French. And the one that we're gonna taste today is 100% Mourvèdre. Now, we've designed that wine to be a blend, but when we opened French Connection, we had to make the wines at Calais on the year before. So we have a whole lot of space, and we had to choose exactly which we're gonna make. We couldn't make like 4 or 5 rosés like we can do nowadays, and so we had to choose. So we decided Sanso, and we decided to make Mourvèdre. So the Sanso goes in our vin gris, which is a lighter body. It's more Provence style. And then somebody just snuck me a prop bottle. It's sadly empty, but it's a Bendol bottle, which is inspiration behind this guy, the Connection Rosé. So Bendol makes heavier rosés. So rosés that have a little bit more heft to it. And it's usually because Mourvèdre is the main varietal in the blends. Doesn't mean that it's 100% Mourvèdre rosé in those wines, but that usually the Mourvèdre rosé is going to be the one that's going to be the base to that wine. So in this case, it's 100%. It's all from Buena Suerte. So western side of Terry County, so on the western edge out there. We did direct pressing on it. We don't always do direct pressing on it, but if I had to choose one, on a year like 2018, where we had pretty high tannin, we picked that rosé at the end of September. So at that point, the tannins in the Mourvèdre were pretty developed. So we decided to basically handpick the whole block and pick every other cluster so that we could still leave some to make red. But we wanted to be as gentle on the fruit as we could, because it's naturally going to come out with a lot of tannins. That's the thing about Mourvèdre rosé, is that if Mourvèdre rosé is done in a bigger body style, it's actually age worthy. So you can make a bigger style of Mourvèdre. In Bendol, they will actually pour you 3 or 4 year old rosés. So they recommend aging those rosés. So I know it's kind of weird. In Texas, we just want to grab them and drink them in the week after we buy them, but it's actually designed for like aging, and it's designed to go with food too. So it's perfect for any summer fare. Anything you can put on a grill is probably going to work with that style of rosé.
So Ben,
the other style we make, which is Sanso Bay, is way lighter body. So it's like, it's your summer, it's your by the pool, it's your outside getting really, really cold. Where this guy is going to be a little bit better if you actually let it warm up a little bit. So you don't want to drink it at room temp, and you don't want to drink it at temp. You want to be somewhere in between.
Ben, did you say how long you usually leave the skins in contact?
So we don't. That's the weird thing. It's called direct pressing. So we actually handpick the clusters, and we're gonna take the whole clusters and I'm gonna put them directly in the press. So usually you can judge those rosés by the color. Some varietals have more color than others. Mourvèdre would be one that has high color. So the ones that almost look like white wine, they're usually made from Sanso or Sangio, or varietals that are lower skin, like lower amount of anthocyanin in the skin, like the compound that gives the color to the wine. So if you really want to make a dark rosé, you do skin contact. So you're going to destem it like you would do a red wine. You're going to leave the skin and juice in contact for a while. 8 hours, 12 hours, 18 hours, and then you're going to press it. In this case, we did direct pressing. That's because it's mostly a factor of the year. This year, we did a little bit of both. We picked Buena Suerte Mourvèdre, and we did direct pressing on that one. And another portion of that wine, we actually did skin contact on to have a little bit more tannin, a little darker color on it. And all really very much a factor of the year. This 2019, the year that I say as current year, is a year that was lighter body in general. So we didn't have as much tannin in the skins of the Mourvèdre, and we didn't have as much color in the skin of the Mourvèdre. So we decided to do a little bit of direct pressing, a little bit of skin contact. So we'll change it year to year. The goal is to make good wine, not being dogmatic about it. We'll adapt to what Mother Nature is. Mother Nature in Texas throwing us curveballs every single year, sometimes 3 or 4 times in a season. And so we picked our Mourvèdre for Rosé the last week in October this year. This is supposed to be an early September, max mid-September kind of thing. So there's just the craziness of Texas. And so we're trying to be as adaptable as Mother Nature is going to be crazy with us.
Awesome. Well, I personally, I'm a sucker for really killer packaging. So tell the folks out there watching about the bottle that you package these rosés in.
It was made in my hometown in France. We're not going to use that bottle this year because we can't get it.
No!
We can't get it. We got COVID of getting that this year. But yeah, it's made in my hometown. It's the same people that make the glasses that we use. The glasses that we use at French Connection and at Calais. We're using 2 different kinds of glasses, but they both come from my home region. And so those bottles, they're beautiful bottles, very clear glass. It's just very difficult for us to get them. So there's some years we have them and they're here on time, and there's some years where they're not. So this is going to be a year where all our supply chain is upside down. There's a lot of things we're unable to get at the moment, and those bottles are just one of them. And we just can't delay bottling rosés. There's a lot of wines that we can just keep in barrels for a little longer, but things like rosés are in stainless where you try and preserve freshness. If you don't bottle them on time, they're just going to lose they're going to dull out in terms of flavor. So we just racked all those wines in the past 48 hours. So the rosé for Calais, the Connection rosé, and the Winery, all 3 got racked. And so next few weeks, we're going to be bottling. I know everybody has to stay home, but wine is considered essential because we're manufacturing. So bottling operations will not stop, which is a good thing because there's absolutely no way we can catch up. If we stop bottling, we will never catch up. So we have to be bottled before we reopen the wineries, whenever that might be, and make sure that those rosés are going to show well. We like to give them about a month between bottling time and when we're going to put them out there.
Awesome. Well, glad I brought up the bottle. Cool. All right. Well,
it is. It's a pretty cool bottle. It takes pretty cool pictures.
It's a great bottle. Cool, man.
I like that bottle. That's cool. I like the fluting or whatever it is on the bottom. What do you call that?
It's called a designer punt.
A punt. That's right.
Yeah. And that's the designer punt. They actually have a collection of them for you to choose from. If you walk in the office, whether in Napa or in Paris of that company, this is actually the bottle you're going to see. It's our bottle of rosé. They bought a 12-pack just so they could put them on display out there.
All right.
We're the first ones to use that bottle for rosé. So
very nice.
Cool. Awesome. Well, I guess the last wine in the lineup here will be the 2016 Maximus from Astris. So Mike, tell me a little bit about the Maximus.
All right, guys. So kind of just following along with the the fact that we'd like to be doing this in front of people and not virtually, but are happy to do it virtually. Today is April 2nd, and today we were supposed to release Maximus to the public. We're open Thursday through Sunday, and so this was the first Thursday where we were going to release Maximus to the public and do tastings and all that good stuff. So happy to do it virtually. We actually ended up rolling it out a couple of weeks early just to let it to make it available for people doing curbside or ordering their wines while quarantined. But it was just kind of a date we had on the calendar. When we bottled it, we were like, all right, we want to give it some time to lay down. And so we'll roll it out April 2nd. So to the wine, we've got a cool little blend here, 46% Cabernet, 40% Tannat, and 14% Petit Verdot. Kind of a similar blend to our 2015 Austonius, which was a Cab Merlot Petit Verdot blend. But this one is Tannat in lieu of Merlot. So again, Cab, Tannat, Petit Verdot, 3 pretty big varietals. So rather than Austonius, we went with Maximus to kind of describe the flavor profile that you're going to get and how intense it is. So like I said, 3 big varietals. The Tannat comes from Ready Vineyards, and we extracted a ton of color, a ton of tannin from this wine. It was a little high on the pH side. It was kind of a wine that after it was made was like, okay, good candidate for a blender here. Not necessarily a single varietal wine, but definitely something that could serve as the backbone for a really big red blend. Kind of just going along with what our program was at the time, we pinpointed some blending partners for the Tannat, and that was a few barrels of Cab that we had, as well as a couple barrels of Petit Verdot. The Petit Verdot just kind of helped round out the mid palate, helped with the finish a little bit. But what you get is a really big red wine. It is right at home with a ribeye, those stereotypical red wine meals. But it's big, it's bold. It's still coming around, like I said, this is the week we were going to release it, but we definitely, you could definitely lay this down for a few years. It's well balanced, good tannin structure, all High Plains fruit, Ready Vineyards on the Tannat and the Petit Verdot, the family vineyard on the Cab there in Brownfield. So all High Plains fruit, all Texas, obviously. A nice little wine that would have been rolled out today, like I said, but we're sharing it with you online, and I hope you guys that got some of this in your packs are either going to enjoy it tonight with us or save it for a special occasion, Sunday dinner or something, and yeah.
Cool, man. Well, I had a question for you, but you already answered it. So since we're coming up on an hour here, we do have so that's all the wines that we've run through for the 2 packs. So again, for everybody out there who is watching who hasn't purchased these wines or who didn't purchase these wines with the intent of tasting them while watching this, they are still 100% available for you to go on and purchase. But we do have some other questions from some folks that came in through Facebook for you guys. And fortunately, they are some kind of questions that each one of you can answer. So I think that we'll go through and have you each kind of answer them one at a time in the same order that we've done. So the first one I'll ask is, there was a question that came through about each person's kind of, other than your own and who else is on this call with you, who are some other wineries or winemakers in the area that you guys really like what they have putting out. So Andrew, I'll put that one to you first and let you throw out 1 or 2 people that obviously we know that there's want to support everybody, but are there 1 or 2 just off the top of your head that you really kind of look to for like things that you drink at home?
Wow. Like from here locally?
Yeah.
Sure. So there's a lot of great producers out there. I would say the first thing I always do is, like, I'm a big supporter of guys who are trying to, grow grapes and make wine from Texas fruit. And I'm just always really interested to just taste different wines from Texas and different locations. And so obviously William Chris uses, I think they farm grapes from like 28 to 30 different vineyards, which is pretty incredible. I don't know how to keep up with it, but it's pretty cool. They probably have the widest array of wines from all over the state. I think I also like to taste wines from producers that that specialize in a lot of the same stuff we do. So like I really like tasting David Culkin's Tempranillo every year, because Tempranillo is a big part of our program year in and year out, and I think that they're some of the best producers of it in the state for sure. If you, I mean, Kim McPherson was a big reason that, and has a lot of his style and things for Rhone white varieties is kind of where we got our start, and kind of where it, like really kind of followed the lead of what they were doing in the winery for a long time. And I think that very, very rarely are you ever going to get one of his wines and be like disappointed. And so that's a pretty good thing. So the new guys at Dega Vino, if you haven't been out there, that's one that I will say they're making some really, really nice stuff. I tasted through all their stuff probably a month ago, and their wines are really, really, really good, and from top to bottom. And so that's one of probably the biggest things for me, is like when you can go to a place and enjoy everything, and it just kind of shows that they're pretty good program. Like all their programs are pretty solid and pretty sound. So those are three I'd probably name.
Sweet, man. Appreciate it. Ben?
All right. I want to mention guys like Perisos. They're a little bit north of us. Like we kind of live in the bubble on 290, but there's some really, really interesting stuff that's just a little bit further. They're about 45 miles north of here. They grow a lot of grapes on the estate, and they have like a small, weird kind of microclimate up there. They do fantastic Arianica, Syrah, Petit Syrah. They do a lot. They do a lot of stuff in hierarchical levels, both on the whites and on the reds. And then there's a winery in West Texas called Bolin Vineyard. Folks have been great for quite a while, and they just opened like right before all this happened. So if anybody wants to try a new winery, I'd highly recommend supporting those guys. They're really fantastic people. They're trying to do everything the right way. They're 100% Texas grapes, and so I'd love to see some folks also support those guys.
Fantastic. Thanks a lot, man. Michael, you're up.
All right. Lots of pressure going last. I feel like so many of our friends and colleagues have been spoken for already. I kind of want to give a wholesale ditto to everything that's been mentioned already. But if you have not tasted wine with Henry Croston in Johnson City, you're missing out. You should definitely make it out and drink some wine with Henry. You will not regret it. He's a joyous soul, and that's an experience that you should not miss. I guess right now, you can't drink wine with him, but you could probably convince him to sell you a bottle or two. And then
Henry's not very good at social distancing. If you don't get 10 hogs during a tasting with Henry, you're doing something wrong. So
I love it. And then, yeah, I mean, so right down the street, I'd say a couple folks kind of coming from Henry's place to our place. Lewis Wines is fantastic. Been around, probably as long as you have been. Doing really great things out there. Yeah. Excellent whites, rosés, reds across the board. Been doing it longer, than most people in this area. And then, pretty close to, not too far away from William Chris, like Andrew mentioned, is High Meadow. The Baytex out at High Meadow, making some great Texas wines, growing some grapes, doing their thing. So, yeah, I mean, it's such an awesome situation to be in, to have so many different places to stop at along the way. 5-10 years ago, it might not have been the case, but I mean, we could probably spend an hour talking about all the badass people making wine in Texas now, and it's really exciting. It's a really exciting time for this industry. It's an exciting time to be a part of this industry.
When 5-10 years ago, there might not have been as many 100% Texas wines available either. Might not have been as many grapes, but now there's a lot of wineries at 100% Texas grapes, and that's really, really nice evolution that we've seen.
Heck yeah.
No doubt. Cool. Well, the other question, and thanks, Mike, appreciate that. The other question that we had that kind of goes to everybody, and actually this is a perfect question because it gives me it asked a question from somebody else who's interested, the question that I was going to ask to let you guys kind of talk a little bit about what you have coming up. But somebody wanted to know from each of the wineries, kind of, is there anything you guys can talk about that you're excited about that each of your wineries kind of has coming up for new releases here, whether it's something that people can purchase online to have shipped to them within the next couple of weeks, or something that's, you know, maybe a little bit further down the road? What are some new releases you guys have coming out that you're excited about? So Andrew, if you want to start that off.
All right. Yeah. So 2019, I guess, was the first year that we started producing hill country wines as well as high plains. So that's a pretty cool thing. We got some wines from that vintage from the hill country AVA that are coming out, a rosé in particular, and then a carbonic macerated Petite Syrah, which is pretty stellar. So it's one of the funnest wines to make. Maybe it wasn't the easiest, but it turned out really good. We're pretty excited about it. So our hill country wines from 2019 are all tasting really good in the cellar right now.
Nice, man. Yeah, being someone who was living in the hill country in 2019 and kind of talking about that 2017 vintage, the 2019 was like living here. The weather, it made you just think, my God, like harvest is getting extended, more hang time on the vine. Like the 2019 hill country vintage is probably going to be a pretty stellar one. So awesome. Thanks, man. Ben, on to you. What do you got coming out that people can get excited about?
And we bottled our 18 red blend. We are labels. The labels fell to the COVID like everybody else. So we had to bottle the wine without having the labels. So we're going to go back and label all that stuff in the next few weeks whenever labels show up. We were very excited about our first Picpoul Blanc. So we sourced the Picpoul Blanc from Kubachak Vineyard for the first time last year. Sadly, those vines didn't fare too well in the winter. So we probably don't have a 2020 coming up, but I'm really excited about what we have in the tank. It's pretty much ready for bottling. We just got the bottles. I'm hoping we get the labels so we can label at the same time we're bottling. And then I think across the board, just the rosés from 2019 are just fantastic. So I'm really excited about all the rosés we're about to put in the bottle. They all taste fantastic. That was great year for Sanso. Sanso is a variety that really wants to make good wine year after year after year. But last year was very, very good year for our Sanso Rosé, which goes into our Vin Gris. We also made a little bit of Grenache Rosé, which went, we made two different Grenache Rosé batches, both as experiment, but they also found their way into the final blends. And that was really good. Mourvèdre Rosé, even though we picked it super late in the season last year, there's so much freshness to that wine. It's just incredible that we're picking last week in October and we have so much freshness in the rosé. So I'm really excited about putting those wines in a bottle and sharing them, you know, whenever temperatures warm up or and we can get people back out there, or maybe we're going to be releasing them online and doing a million more of those virtual tastings.
Sweet, man. Appreciate it. All right, Mike, what's Astris got coming up?
Well, it sounds like we're all kind of in the same boat, man. We bottled a bunch of our 2017 reds and did not have labels yet. So we have a bunch of really dope red wines I'm excited about that came from a spectacular vintage that we've, described on this tasting as being spectacular. So really excited to get those labeled, roll them out to the public when we can, kind of, probably in the next 3-4 months. And then on the white side, we bottled our first estate fruit. We bottled some Clairette Blanche that we grew at our estate in Stonewall. So we've got a very limited run of that, about 90 cases of estate fruit to release. We also did a Picpoul Blanc from Ready Vineyards that I'm really excited about. It turned out really well. That's also in bottle without a label. So as soon as we get those and can, kind of mobilize the squad to get everything squared away and then decide on release dates and hopefully, reopen the tasting room, I'm really excited to share those reds and whites with everybody.
Awesome, man. Thanks. Well, So for everybody who's still logged in and watching us here, we do plan one day next week. We haven't solidified the date and time just yet, but one day next week. If there was anything that you missed, if you logged in kind of late to the tasting, we do plan on doing a follow-up, probably a little bit more kind of condensed follow-up, just to give people an opportunity to ask some more questions and stuff like that if they want to. But again, one day next week, once we get the date and time solidified on that, we'll blast it out on social media. And as well, for those people who logged in kind of late, who want to maybe see the first half of this, we've been recording it, and once we end the video, it'll be live on Facebook, and we're definitely going to be working on getting the kind of hard copy video to where we can all post it out to our respective Instagram accounts as well. Again, if you guys who have been watching, if this has invigorated your spirit for learning more about the Texas wine industry, you can always go over to my Instagram, The Liquid Culture. For the last month, like I said, I've been working on Texas specifically, and we'll definitely have other Texas stuff in the future, as well as be posting this live video that we've recorded once we get the hard copy for that. And please, guys, everybody go and, support all of your for those of you watching here who are living in Texas right now, more than ever, it's always great to support local, but right now more than ever is an incredible time to support local, whether that be buying wine from these winemakers here, or buying wine from other Texas wineries, supporting local restaurants, supporting local mills, and, artisans who are able to sell their stuff online. These people all, need help. So if you're still in a position to be able to spend some of those dollars on, food products and whatever the case may be, wine and so on and so forth for your local community, please do that, especially now more than ever. So I want to thank these guys all for asking me to come on and moderate this. Love spending time with you guys, and appreciate you all taking the time to connect with all of our followers out here, and tell them a little bit about what you guys have going on. And if y'all want to say goodbye, now's the time to do that. I think we're going to wrap it up.
Let's go.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you everybody for logging in and watching here with us tonight, and we'll see you soon. Bye, everybody.